upload. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for logging on and joining us today. I have Beth Williams next to me. So today we're going to be just doing updates on vaping and marijuana, new trends, new research out there. Let me share my screen. First, I wanted to start with giving you guys an update about what the topic is Purple Club students have been doing at the schools. Desktop, share screen, slideshow, play from the start. Okay. So this month in October, it was also October. It's also known for National Substance Abuse Month. And then Red Ribbon Week is October 23rd up until Halloween of this year. So I wanted to share more pictures with you guys, but the club kids are still working on their Red Ribbon drug prevention posters. So I'm going to share those in October when they're finished. But the middle and high school student clubs, they made drug prevention Red Ribbon posters supporting anti-vaping, anti-marijuana. And they made them like Halloween themed. So I'm going to share those with you guys. They put facts on there of why, kids shouldn't be vaping or using marijuana. And then also at the elementary schools, I did vape lessons with the 5th graders. To the left here is some of my middle school club kids. They signed I pledged to be vape free. And then this is just one 5th grade classroom that I went into, gave my vaping lesson, and all the kids chose to sign there I pledged to be vape free. So pretty cool. And then next month I'm going to share with you guys the posters that all the kids did and share them with you so you guys can see what they did, and they're going to be hung up in school too, so it's going to be pretty cool, pretty good. I wanted to also give another quick update on a new vaping device that's been out there for probably not even a year now, I don't think. They're called highlight vapes or highlighter vapes, and they literally look like highlighters, cap and all. So they also will say highlight on them. So the piece where it looks like it's where you use it or draw. This is a mouthpiece up here. The cap looks like a regular highlighter cap, but it's really a THC or marijuana vape. They're mainly the THC vapes. I think some are just nicotine, I think, but majority of them are the THC vapes, and you can easily purchase them online. I found a few websites where all you had to do is select, oh yeah, I'm over 21, and then it lets you in and you can easily buy them. So I know a couple of the sites were blocked from student laptops already. I guess kids might have been trying to access the websites, but definitely something to look out for. Unfortunately, now paying attention to highlighters because this is out there now. And it's gonna, eventually come into our schools, I think. So
refillable.
These are refillable. Yeah, these are the refillable ones. Yeah, not that this, but yeah, they have, I don't exactly know where the pod part is. I'm assuming it's at the bottom of here. But yeah, it just keeps getting quote unquote better and better with how these companies are trying to trick us so that the kids can do it in school, unfortunately. Okay. And guys, any questions, comments, be happy to answer them at the end, or I'll try to check the queue in chat as well. And I'm going to hand this over to Beth to start talking about the scope of the problem with marijuana and vaping.
Well, good afternoon. I'm happy to be back. Thank you to Madison for allowing me to chime in today on this important topic. We've done a lot of stuff on marijuana, but I looked back and saw it had been back in 2021, I believe, or the end, early 22, that we had done one. So we thought we would update a little bit with marijuana now being legal in Maryland, and with as Madison said, making it easier and easier to access these tools to use marijuana, these devices. We, are interested to see. The data is not very unchanged yet, because again, data takes us a good couple of years between surveys, and I know the school systems do surveys, but they usually are within about 12 to 18 months before we can get any good data from them. But what I could find was that 11% of young adults reported using marijuana on a daily basis, and that's up a tiny bit from the last time. This is not 2021 data. That should not be there. This is recent NIH data. 15% report use in the last month, and 43% had used in the past year. So that's going up a little bit, and I will talk about that in a second at the end of this slide. About 16% of young adults report vaping nicotine, and 12% vaping marijuana or cannabis of some kind. It might be oils, or loaded into a vape cartridge, etc. CBD. CBD. So we'll talk a little more about that. Teens who still have developing brains, of course, are especially susceptible to the adverse effects, and maybe 2 to 4 times more likely than peers who are non-using to develop psychiatric disorders. What has changed since the last time we did this presentation is that now marijuana and cannabis products are legal. Not, of course, to people under the age of 21. Or is it 18?
It's 21.
But, if something is legal, then it's going to be perceived as being okay. It's going to be perceived as less risk. And our youth are getting that message. They perceive the risk as being even lower than smoking, which we know it is not. Although smoking is very high risk behavior also for young people. But, the message comes down, well, now something is legal, so the state must think it's okay to do it. It's just like with youth, drinking rates are always high because it is a legal substance. Youth use pharmaceutical drugs because they think it's safe, because it comes from a doctor. So, these are the messages that our young people get. It doesn't even have to be said to them. They perceive it that way from the way their community looks. So, marijuana, as we know, we might be using marijuana and cannabis kind of interchangeably here, but marijuana is a mind-altering drug. It's a psychoactive drug, meaning that it does, so hoarse today, meaning that it does cause some changes in the brain. The brain does adapt. The brain does have receptors for cannabis. So it is, readily affected when cannabis or marijuana enters the system. Contains over 500 substances, but of course what we hear about the most now is CBD and of course THC. THC produces the psychoactive or the high effect. CBD will not produce that intoxicated or that high, but it will produce other more relaxing effects for a person that's using it. 2 major strains that we see are indica and sativa. Sativa is the one that kind of gets people a little more acting up a little, if I would say, energetic. It has more psychedelic or hallucinogenic qualities, where indica has qualities that kind of calm a person down. So usually marijuana is loosely put into one of those types. Smoked as a cigarette, joint, or a roach, as it's called, or in a vaping device. Pipe, bong, or blunt, which is a hollowed out cigar. What we're seeing in the vaping device, and we'll talk a little bit later, but that is, you can get preloaded, as Madison was saying, preloaded devices or preloaded cartridges of THC or CBD. So it makes it that much easier for our youth. They don't even have to fill their own cartridge. They can just pick it up and start to use it. Marijuana does affect tunnel vision, does affect driving. It causes tunnel vision. We've always heard, well, it's easier or it's safer to drive with marijuana than alcohol because marijuana kind of chills you out. And actually it is not. It does affect perception and areas of the brain that have to do with decision making. It is addictive. There is a diagnosis called cannabis use disorder. We'll talk a tiny bit about that at the end. And marijuana is what we call a gateway drug. And I know that's kind of a term that hasn't been used in a while, but it does certainly cause or add risk to folks that start using marijuana early to move on to either other substances or to continue using marijuana. It's kind of not the marijuana, I was going to say, of your mother or your grandmother, but, you know, of the 1970s or 1980s. Back in those days, the THC levels averaged about 3.7%, where today it averages 15%. And there are some products that can be bought at dispensaries that go up to 80 to 90% of THC, the gold standard, the high shelf, the top shelf kind of stuff. Extracts, which are used in vaping and dabbing and edibles, can contain 40 to up to 90% THC. So think about the fact that when a person smokes or vapes, that substance they're smoking or vaping gets into their lungs almost immediately, into their bloodstream almost immediately. And think of that with a youth and with average to 40 to 90% THC that they're getting through vaping is not a good thing. I mean, this can be very dangerous, very high risk for youth. Because we know that higher THC levels mean a greater risk for risky behaviors as well as addiction. So adolescent use of blank makes future users more likely. So you can see here with marijuana, adolescent use of marijuana makes future use of heroin or fentanyl 3 times more likely. There's where that gateway drug term comes in. We know with alcohol as well is considered a gateway drug. Alcohol use in adolescence makes future use of heroin or fentanyl 2 times more likely. So again, not safe stuff and very high risk for future health. I don't think there's any of us that don't really know what marijuana looks like, but just as a refresher, it is a green leafy plant. It comes from the hemp plant, or affiliated with the hemp family of plants. When it is dried into buds or just a substance on the right, it can be rolled into cigarettes or joints. It can be smoked in a pipe or a vape. On the left, you see some commonly seen vapes. But as Madison showed you, and we're always looking at stuff that is showing new vaping devices. We did a presentation not too long ago that showed what these devices look like and how easily you can get them. And they're disguised. I mean, you all know they're disguised as flash drives. They're disguised as now markers, pens, whatever people can market to young people to make it more appealing and more accessible for young people. And pipes on the right for marijuana use. Buds and bongs, of course, when it's clumped together like this, it's called a bud, and many people will just purchase marijuana a bud at a time or a couple buds at a time. A bong is, like you see here, a water pipe that cools down when you light the marijuana. And we're talking about the leaves now. We're not talking about the necessarily the liquids or the what am I trying to say? Or the tinctures or the honeys, but we're talking about just straight bud or leaf marijuana. It cools down the smoke so the user doesn't get as sore of a throat. Slang names, the ones we hear most often: Mary Jane, bud, blunts, dope, joint, herb, all kinds of these out there, smoke or weed. Sensimilla used to be a special blend, it was a higher THC back in the day, but all kinds of slang names. And as we always repeat, slang, people can make up their own slang terms, or if somebody is manufacturing and selling marijuana, they can make up their own names for it. And now we have dispensaries, so they're making up all kinds of really appealing names to people, sunshine and, all this kind of, stress-free and all these labels that are now given or used as slang for marijuana. People can now say, well, I like that brand better than, something else. All right, signs of use, changes in mood, personality, appearance. The mood can range from a really high or euphoric feeling, talkativeness, happiness, which would be using that sativa blend or type of marijuana, versus you may see depression, sleeping, lethargy, just really relaxed, really mellow. That's that indica strain. With any substance, we always want as parents to be aware of drug-friendly speech or attitude. Our kids wearing T-shirts that advertise, alcohol or other drugs? Are they, talking about, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's not going to hurt me. Everybody does it. Drug-friendly speech. Impaired judgment. We see a lot of impaired driving with marijuana, again, because people don't think it's as dangerous to drive under the influence because it calms you down, as opposed to alcohol, which, can get you falling asleep behind the wheel. So an exaggerated sense of creativity or intelligence, or just thinking, they're just an elevated sense of just being, it just helps them be more creative of a person. More signs, and this is usually what a lot of parents are first noticing: problems with family. They don't want to be with the family. They, when they're with the family, they're rolling their eyes. They just don't want anything to do with anything having to do with family, or sometimes even old friends. Drowsiness or irritability, paranoia. We may see social or behavioral problems. This might be when we start seeing some minor delinquent behaviors starting, maybe, losing their temper very easily, maybe, shoplifting to get cash to buy the drugs, those kind of things. A lot of times parents will see school problems occurring. It might be the grades are all of a sudden going down over a semester. They're not showing up to school. They're falling asleep on their desk. They might be skipping classes, just completely opting out of homework or studying. So these are the kind of things that are not that hard to observe. And again, as with anything, we always like to repeat that we're looking for patterns of behavior. So if one or two times your child comes home from school and they're irritable, or they haven't done their homework, it's not necessarily a cause for alarm. But if it's starting to happen more frequently, if the grades are going down pretty rapidly, or just seems like, all of a sudden things may be not normal for your child, those are the things we want to look at. What's not feeling normal or looking normal to you about your child, or what is just, not typical behavior, and looking for trends. So physical signs, you're going to see the red eyes, the use of eye drops, a dry cough or a dry mouth. Remember, if you're smoking it, you're getting very dry, heavy smoke in your throat and your lungs. So you'll hear a lot of cough, dry cough, dizziness. Maybe they're just feeling more slowed down, more mellow, slowed or slurred speech, maybe a little more clumsy. Those kind of things are what you may see with marijuana or cannabis use. Effects on the brain, it does, and this is cannabis. This is, again, not just marijuana. When we're talking about these effects, it can be on any form of cannabis. So it could be an edible, it could be something they're vaping. We're going to see some mental health effects, because marijuana affects the brain, part of the brain that influences our pleasure center in the brain, memory, concentration, time perception, coordination. So that, again, is where it comes in with, problems at school, problems at a job, problems with family. It's just affecting these types of areas, especially learning. Mental health effects could include really unpleasant or frightening thoughts, feelings of anxiety, paranoia, hallucinations, maybe even panic attacks. People used to say, I did substance abuse counseling for many years through a health department clinic. And I worked with adolescents, and a lot of the young people would come in and, it doesn't hurt me. I'm fine. It doesn't, I feel much better. I perform much better at school, and when we would do education with the youth, it was, who hallucinates on pot? Pot is so nothing, it's so, low risk. And I had one particular student I had in my program who showed up one morning at 8 in the morning when we were opening the doors and was absolutely shaking with fear. He said he had hallucinated and had almost like a panic attack. He was sweaty, he was frightened, he was just confused over pot. And this was 30 years ago almost, so it wasn't like it was mixed with anything to the level that we're seeing now. This was just pure marijuana that he used to use all the time, and he had a very bad experience. So people do hallucinate on marijuana. There's no doubt about it. In fact, it's kind of, even though it's categorized as it's sort of a depressant, it's also a psychoactive, psychedelic drug effects as well with marijuana. So it is definitely possible that people can hallucinate. They might also have depression, suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts, or even completed suicides because of the depression, temporary psychosis, associated often heavy use, especially of cannabis, is associated with schizophrenia. Especially if it happens, if somebody started using very early or they were using very frequently. And often it is with also, if there's an underlying risk anyway for a psychotic illness. And impaired mental functioning, which can go into adulthood. And you have to think, if you've ever known anyone who has used marijuana for a long period of time, starting when they were 12, 13 years old, they've missed huge chunks of learning in their life. They've missed not just school learning and the important things you need to know, but, how to, manage money, pay bills, write out a check, how to apply for a job, how to do certain tasks that are just everyday tasks, because they've missed those chunks of their developing brain through adolescence. They haven't acquired that knowledge. So oftentimes you will see someone going into rehab who really has to, it's not even rehabilitation, it's kind of habilitation. We have to work with them to learn how to do the most basic functions of life. Oh, wrong one there. Okay. Short and long term, just to kind of finish this section up, we're going to see sedation, changes in appetite, sleep difficulties, a lot of respiratory and breathing problems with people who use cannabis products on a regular basis, especially with vapes. I mean, Madison could definitely talk more about that than I could, but vaping, people think it's healthier than smoking. A lot of people substitute it as smoking tobacco, but all that that vapor, that hot vapor getting into your lungs, that it can cause even chronic lung disease in some people if they do it for too long.
Yeah.
So
you got popcorn lung, which happened to back around like COVID. It happened to quite a few teenagers across the country. And you have that, do you know how to pronounce it? Evali or Evali? It's a newer type of lungs disease.
Okay.
But it's only associated with the THC vapes.
Wow.
But it's another one. So the popcorn
Look that up.
lungs disease is linked to the nicotine vapes, and then this Evali, it's an abbreviation for a lungs disease, but they call it Evali or something, for short. And it's associated with THC vapors who they all vape THC and they happen to get it. And then with both of them, both of those diseases, the patients are on a breathing machine.
Wow.
For both of them. So it's pretty serious.
It is serious. And I believe, because I've done some reading on this as well, you're getting scarring of the lungs that is not going to repair itself, especially when you're continuing to use. And even something similar to a COPD kind of a thing, where people just can't, get enough oxygen in their lungs because their lungs are so damaged. And of course, many cancers are related or are kind of associated with heavy cannabis use, tumors in reproductive organs, respiratory, neck and head especially. So, it's not good to use at any level, but the more someone uses and gets more accustomed to it and gets addicted and then uses it to solve every problem in their life, the more at risk they're going to be physically. Okay, CBD cannabidiol is a single extract from the cannabis plant. The FDA has approved only one product, which is a prescription drug that treats seizures. And as you may know, also marijuana or THC has been used for treating of other neurological seizures. And that's experimental in terms of the FDA. Over-the-counter products containing CBD are not FDA approved. That means there is no one body, one organization or administration making sure that these things are safe. They're not, put through lab tests and all of that. So when you use something like CBD over the counter, it is really at your own risk because you don't really know what is in it, how much is in it. It is not a hallucinogenic or a psychedelic effect like THC would be. It's just another chemical of the almost 500 chemicals in the cannabis plant. It's illegal to market it by adding it to a food or labeling it as a dietary supplement. Again, derived from the hemp plant, contains less, if any, it contains less than 3% of THC because that's just naturally found in hemp. But it does not produce that high feeling. And the products include the oil, gummies, capsules, and tinctures. So again, this could be something that is vaped and often is vaped, can also be found in preloaded cartridges. People use it because they think it relieves their pain, it relieves their anxiety, their stress. It will make you feel more relaxed, but you're not going to get that high intoxicated feeling. Research which is going on has shown that it may relieve pain from MS and arthritis conditions. It could possibly reduce symptoms of mental health disorders and might alleviate certain cancer-related symptoms. But the results in these studies have been mixed. So we can't say across the board that this is helpful in terms of disease, easing disease. Side effects, again, changes in appetite and weight, fatigue. Possible other effects might include drowsiness, sedation, possible respiratory concerns, and liver damage, very similar to the other cannabis products. Interacts with several medications, including those that treat pain. So, and depression, diabetes, and seizures. So it is advised if someone is going to use CBD to ease their stress or to take the edge off a condition of some kind, to try to talk to your physician beforehand because it can interact with alcohol and with other pharmaceutical drugs. Okay, what happened here? There we go. Okay. So when I might rely on you to help me a little bit with this. I'm not a vaping expert, but cannabis concentrates for vaping are typically very highly potent and concentrated with very high levels of THC, meaning again that the THC is the chemical that causes people to act out or to do high risk behaviors. Then you're looking at very high THC levels, up to 4 times stronger than high grade or the top shelf of regular marijuana. It resembles honey or butter, or even like a semi-solid substance. And I have some pictures we'll show you. Commonly used in vaping devices because it is smokeless, it is odorless, and it is easy to conceal. A small amount, or what is often called a dab, can be heated in the vaping device, and this is what they call dabbing. Produces vapors, which anything in a vapor form will produce, instantly get into the bloodstream and produce an instant high. Also will cause more psychological and physically intense effects than just smoking leaf marijuana.
And then can I add on to this?
Of course.
So there's research out there saying that if you are under 18 and you use a THC vape, you're 4 times more likely to become addicted to opioids.
Wow.
So that's a big 4 times more likely. And yeah, the THC vapes, they're a lot stronger compared to if you're smoking marijuana or if you're consuming edible. The THC levels are a lot higher and stronger in THC vape.
And that's the addictive substance.
Yeah.
Right. interesting about the opioids, not
Mhm.
surprising.
Mhm.
I'll talk about opioids in a couple seconds after these next slides, but again, street names for concentrates, we hear dabbing or dab, wax, shatter, honey, butter, all of that because of what the consistency. So here's what some of it looks like. This distillate here is kind of that's the liquid or the rosin, but usually it's this distillate, as you can see, has no taste, no smell, not detectable. So if somebody is vaping that, it's not going to smell like another marijuana or cannabis product. It's a liquid that's just preloaded into a cartridge and vaporized. Some of these others, people can use some of these are like crumble or these, looks like crumbled up like peanut brittle or something. I don't know, but that consistency, people can take chunks of that and put it into, you would not be able to put that in a vape, but put it into a small pipe that you could, light up or heat up. You wouldn't really light it, you would heat it up and inhale that. And then like the bubble hash over here on the left or the keef over here on the right is just very finely sifted, just chopped and sifted down into that's marijuana leaves or marijuana buds. So people can sprinkle that on other marijuana, or sometimes people just smoke hash as well. So that's kind of what it looks like. Okay. Edibles, we've all seen these, I'm sure. It still makes my blood pressure go up when I even think about edibles, because we in the field, Madison and I have talked quite a bit about how to talk about medicine safety, and safety at Halloween for candy when we have edibles out there. It really is quite a conundrum to try to figure out how to warn people without having them paranoid of every single piece of candy that comes home. It's very tough. So, this is kind of where you can, either what we saw, the oils or the resin or the honey-like or butter-like liquid can be very easily added to these. And these are just examples of some of the, and you could see the lovely, marketing, Stony Patch instead of Sour Patch, cotton candy here, Butterfinger, butter, everything's butter because that's what the consistency is. Very dangerous. And when you look over here at these pieces of chocolate, typically when the person buys an edible, they will see, if they take the time to read it, on the back of the package, it will say, take 1/8 of of this tiny chocolate bar, or take 1/8 of a cookie and eat it at a time. Do not eat the whole thing. It would be an incredible amount, very dangerous amount of THC. But oftentimes people who are buying these are not going to read the directions and be safe. And so it's up to all of us to be very vigilant about this. And how we approach it with our kids is tricky. You want to basically, ask them not to take candy from anybody in their class. So, and I have heard recently of a couple of cases of kids bringing, it wasn't candy, but what was it? A cake, I think, to school, or a cupcake or something. And was sharing it with the other kids, and about 8 kids in that class got sick because it had THC in it.
What grade was that?
It was not around here. It was somewhere when I was away on vacation. I saw it on the news. So it was probably in Florida, but
Was it like high school?
no, it was middle school, I
It was
think.
middle school.
Yeah, the kid was just sharing. I don't remember if it was cake or cookies, but sharing it with the class. So, we have to be really careful about what happens in classrooms with this kind of stuff. You see cookies here as well. That cookie, an appropriate dose would be about 1/8 of that cookie. And I remember when legalization first happened in Colorado and people were using edibles, and they would come into emergency rooms because they'd eaten a whole cookie, and they were very, very sick from that. When you see kind of sodas and things like that as well. Okay, gummies are very popularly filled with cannabis products as well. we can't go any further without, of course, talking about fentanyl, which we like to get out there as often as possible. Just that marijuana and fentanyl are very often combined as well. And with what Madison just said about people vaping cannabis and then being more prone to go on to opioids, could be a prime example. Maybe people, are looking to blend it because they don't want to say, well, I'm going to go switch to totally using a fentanyl or an opioid, but there may be, sprinkling powder over their, leafy marijuana. They may be liquefying or get liquid fentanyl and then drop it onto either blotter paper like this, put it into sprays. Maybe they're even putting it into edibles. We don't know, but, one use of marijuana can be risky, but the more you use, the more prone you are, or a marijuana product, a cannabis of some kind, to move on to other drugs. And certainly with fentanyl out there, it's a little bit frightening to think about people moving on to opioids. Okay. Greening out is just a term that's used for a cannabis overdose. People can feel sick for up to 2 hours after and feel more stronger effects from what they used. It's more likely to occur with alcohol use before using marijuana or cannabis, because alcohol in the bloodstream can speed up absorption of THC. Typically, it occurs with overconsumption, somebody using more. Again, if they're using a edible and they ate more than they, should have, that would be considered safe. They've gone over their tolerance level and they can have what's considered an overdose. And it can, the symptoms can be very like panic attacks. What concerns those of us that work in this field is that use of alcohol and cannabis together can affect what we call the vomit reflex. And the vomit reflex is way back near the brainstem of our brains, and it protects us. It kicks into gear when there's too much of a poison in our system. So when people drink too much alcohol, they can drink to the point that that vomit reflex is completely turned off because they're so intoxicated that even that part of the brain is not working. We want that part of the brain to work because we want people to, get out of their system what is causing, tremendous respiratory and other effects. But when you use alcohol and cannabis in larger doses, you can have this effect. Okay, legalization. We know that it is legal, not will be legal. Over 21, you can possess 1.5 ounces. More than 1.5, but less than 2.5 results in a civil fine. For adults 21 and older, possession of more than 2.5 ounces could be 6 months in jail. Adults are able to grow 2 plants at home, but it has to be out of the public view and only able to sell with a license. Okay. So what can parents do? This, again, we always like to end with this kind of a section of this, because it just, there are things that parents can do that adults can do. Any adult that has an effect on young people. As parents, we want to postpone that first use, whether it's alcohol or tobacco. Ideally, we don't want them using those at all, or not until they're of legal age. So we want to just, emphasize the legality, and I guess with marijuana too, that, the rules are in place, the laws are in place, because it's not safe for young people to use. We want to also have as a goal to establish healthy behaviors, attitudes, and coping skills. We know that a teen initiating alcohol use is 4 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence, and early tobacco use could be a gateway to other substances, including marijuana. And we know the 3 typical, traditional gateway drugs are alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. I would say cannabis, because it's obviously the other ways that someone can use cannabis. We want to pay attention to patterns of behavior and question or confront in a factual, caring, and loving way. Be informed. So, webinars like this, I know Madison does a lot of work getting information out to parents. So it's really important to be informed as much as possible. Know available resources in our county or our area. Reach out when necessary for a reality check. There's nothing wrong with calling NIDA or the National Institutes of Health, or DEA or any of those experts in the field of substance abuse, and just asking questions or going onto their websites or going onto their social media. It's never, we can never have too much information, and things are changing so much right now, as we saw with the highlighter markers that are really vape devices. We would not know that unless we kept ourselves informed. And network with other parents as well. When we know other parents and we have a group that we all kind of know each other's kids, that can be invaluable to share. I saw, so-and-so looked like he was smoking there behind the, stadium at the school. What's going on? It's always good to have that support and to know other people's kids as well. With your kids, spend time together and maximize it, initiate communication early, praise and encourage when they make a positive choice. So if they are around someone who offers them a cigarette or offers them marijuana or a vape, really praise them for not using, and ask those questions. Wow, what was it that, made you not use that? I'm so proud of you that, you could do that. It's so healthy. Express concern about safety and well-being, and consistent messages regarding our disapproval of substance misuse. Being clear with expectations of non-use, helping them establish alternatives for use, and consequences. We have to be, not only say, you better not ever do that, but, here is why. We don't want you using because it's unhealthy. If you use, this will be the consequence. And we have to be prepared as parents, as hard as it is, to enforce those consequences and those boundaries. Help them develop ways to resist and be comfortable saying no, have an exit plan. I know the DARE program does a really good job of this in terms of helping kids say no, having a way to get out of a situation that's uncomfortable. Can be a phone or a texting word, or a ready excuse for no. My parents would freak out if they found out I'd be in so much trouble. Okay. Eating, this is always my favorite thing. Madison probably gets really sick of hearing me say this, but one of the prevention so-called strategies, I guess you could call it, activities, is has been proven to be a deterrent to initiating substance use in younger people. Eating meals together is often as often as possible, can decrease youth or teen substance use by up to 50%. And that has nothing to do with the food that's being served. That has to do with being connected, with a family being together, with parents and kids communicating, taking a little time out from the outside world and just having a safe place where people can share a meal, and share what's going on in their life. Even if you're one of those parents who's driving your kids back and forth to practices and soccer and games and activities, we can still eat in the car with our kids, fast food for 10 minutes in the car. And I always found that being in the car is a good place to talk anyway, because your kids are kind of captive in the car.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yep.
You can't go anywhere, you're driving.
Yep.
It's a good way to bring up conversation or just like another bonding experience that makes sense with your child. Eating some good food, if it's just fast food, talking about your day or whatever. I mean, take out their earbuds if you have to. I would, but yeah. It's a good bonding experience.
Exactly. Something as simple as eating a meal together. And again, it can be peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the car. It could be eating on the bleachers before practice. There's something very special about sharing a meal anyway. So when you do that with your kids, it's like a little time out, a little backing up out of their day. So we always encourage that. And we do know also from what the research has shown is that youth report that they look to their parents first for guidance on decision-making and problem solving, especially around alcohol, marijuana, cigarette use. So, they're watching us, they're looking to us for answers. Not that we have all the answers, because we don't, but we can be reassuring. We can, help them walk through a problem.
Yeah, and setting those boundaries and setting consistent consequences will go a really long ways when it comes to teen substance use. If you think your child is using, or they use, or even as a preventative measure, setting those consequences and then actually following through with it, because they'll see that it's not just, oh, let's have a conversation with our kid and then see what happens. You have to be clear about your boundaries and consequences, and this will happen and follow through, or else they're kind of gonna like, they're teenagers, they're gonna walk all over, not take it seriously, and they're gonna continue seeing their peers use it or do it. And they're just gonna, basically it's gonna go in one ear out the other. So
Yeah. And they will probably test you. So it's probably
Yeah.
good, even when they're very small, to set this up. You know, if this happens, if somebody offers you candy that you don't know where it came from, you need to not use that. You know, this is why it could not be safe for you. If somebody offers you a cigarette, you want to, you know, not use that. And if you do use a cigarette, you know, we're going to have a consequence of some kind. And they will test that, because you know, when kids are toddlers and you say, don't pick up that ball over there, and the first thing they do is walk over and pick up that ball and look at you and smile. Kids are going to test, but if they know early on what the consequences are, it's not going to be a surprise to them when that consequence comes up. Again, we kind of put on the bottom, parent now, friend later. Parenting is hard work, and we all know we want to, you know, have good experiences with our kids. But when our kids are older and they're healthy and they're productive, good adults, that's when we can be their friends. And it really is a very validating experience to have that, if you can have that. So that's our prevention lesson for the day, right? Anything
Yes.
else, Madison?
For your afternoon lunch session.
Yes, for your session. I'm just putting this in because the one of the programs I consult with is Maryland ROPTA. This is through the University of Maryland Extension Service. And we offer this through a special grant for opioid overdose reduction prevention. So we offer mental health first aid, which is a long course, about 7 hours or so. We have overdose lifeline, which are one-time courses that we have a good opioid course. We have a good addiction in the brain course. Botfin life skills, and then some regrounding our response, which are longer, kind of a deeper dive into what is addiction, what are adverse childhood experiences. You know, it kind of gives a more in-depth education. I don't think I have it on here. This is not a very good slide, but if you go to Maryland ROPTA, ROPTA, we are on the social media channels and outlets. We have a website. So please look that up. These courses are free of charge, particularly on the Eastern Shore. We work a lot with outreach to rural and family and farming families, all of that. So please look up Maryland ROPTA, and we can get you set up with a program. Okay.
Does anybody have any questions? Any questions up on here? Right there. Oh, I don't know what just happened. I'm trying to find that. Oh, that's what happened. I have to go back to this. And then, anybody have any questions, comments? Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Logging on. This will be recorded too. So if you want to, this will be posted, recorded. If you want to share it with your peers or coworkers, you're more than welcome to. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your afternoon and stay safe this Halloween.
Yeah.
Stop share, then I'm going to end.